So I thought I'd do a couple more examples just in case you needed a little bit more help in doing equations in point-slope form. So I'm going to show you both how to write them in point-slope form and how to convert from point-slope form into slope-intercept form. Okay, now the reason you would want to convert into slope-intercept form is if they're asking you to find the y-intercept, or if you have a point in the slope and you want to find write that equation in slope-intercept form. And I'll do a couple of examples from the homework as well. Okay, so this first one comes from the middle of your book. Now I have a theory. No, I don't have a theory. I'm a liar. Okay, so I'm going to start. Remember, whenever I always have to find slope first. So step one is always find slope. So again, use whatever method you want. On your formula chart, first of all, point-slope form is right here on your formula chart. So you don't have to memorize this form. You don't have to memorize y equals mx plus b, and when we get to standard form, you don't have to memorize that one either. You also don't have to memorize the slope formula. Whichever way you want to find slope is fine with me. I like a tiny table, but if you like the slope formula, you do you, okay? You keep on keeping on, and I don't care what you do. But I'm going to do a tiny table because it's the form that I like the best. Okay, to get from 6 to negative 6, I subtract, whoops, that's supposed to be 12. Now, if you're not sure how to get from 6 to negative 6, if you look at those and it doesn't like immediately jump out at you, hang on. Okay, what you're going to do is you're going to take the second number minus the first number. So negative 6 minus 6. So the bottom number minus the top number, and that gets me minus 12. I can do the same thing here. I can do 2 minus negative 6 to tell me that to get from negative 6 to positive 2, I add 8. Okay, now I find my slope by putting delta y over delta x, and that tells me negative 12 over 8, which is negative 3 over 2. If you want to write it as negative 1.5, you can. Negative 1 1/2, you can. I like to leave my slope as a fraction. That's just how I was taught. When I'm dealing with slope, especially when it's anything that I might have to graph, I leave it as a fraction. But it's not wrong to write it like this. It's just not how I do it. So don't, it don't mean anything. All right, so now we're gonna put this into point slope form. So again, remember, here is our point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. In order for me to use this equation, I need to know what y1 is, m, and x1. I have to have those three things. So I'm going to make myself a list. I'm going to say, okay, well, m equals, well, x1 equals, y1 equals. Well, I know my slope, it's negative 3/2. Okay? Now, for my x1 and y1, I'm just going to pick one of these ordered pairs. It doesn't matter which one I pick, okay? But remember, I'm always going to label them. So I have my x, y, 1, 1. So I'm going to use the first one. You could just as easily use the second one, and if you're writing it in point slope form, you might have to write both of them. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to write both of them in point slope form, and then we'll convert one of them into slope intercept form to find the y-intercept. Okay, so for this one, x1 is negative 6 and y1 is positive 6. So I'm going to start substituting into that formula, which again is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. I put that one a little bit off the rails. There we go. That's my formula. Okay? So let's start by substituting. So y minus y1, which is 6, equals negative 3 over 2 times x minus negative 6. Again, I always put my ones in parentheses. Okay, so the next thing I do is I fix any double negatives. Okay, well, y minus 6 is fine. Negative 3 over 2. Double negative makes a positive, x plus 6. This is my first equation in point slope form. Okay, if I want to do the same thing, I could write the other one in point slope form. I would do y minus y1, which is negative 6, equals m x minus x1. And then I would do the same thing. Y plus 6, because double negative makes a positive, equals negative 3/2 x minus 2. And that is also point slope form. Since I have 2 points, I have 2 possible point slope form equations. Okay? So if they give me these 2 points and say, what's the equation in point slope form? They could be giving me either one of them, okay? So again, first we substitute in parentheses, then we simplify any double negatives, and then we're in point slope form. Now, if we want to take the next step and turn it into slope intercept form, it's only 2 more steps, okay? So we start from y minus 6 equals negative 3/2 x plus 6. So the first thing I have to do is I have to distribute, which means I'm going to multiply negative 3/2 times x. So I have y minus 6 equals negative 3/2 times x is negative 3/2 x. Negative 3/2, so what I'm doing here is I'm multiplying, okay? So again, to do a fraction, I do alpha y equals, and I hit enter, and that brings up a blank fraction for me. So I do negative 3 over 2, and so I'm multiplying that by 6, so I do times 6. And it tells me that the answer to that is negative 9, minus 9. Okay, so I'm so close. Remember, I want my slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. The only problem I have now is this little guy hanging out here. So I'm going to send my little sister here out the door, okay, by taking the opposite. That zeroes this out, leaving me y equals negative 3 over 2x. Negative 9 plus 6 is negative 3, minus 3. Now, if I did this right, which, I hope I did, but if I did this right, I should get the same answer over here if I simplify this one. Okay, so let's try it. Y plus 6 equals negative 3 over 2, x minus 2. First step is to distribute, and when I distribute, I'm multiplying everything by this example. By this fraction, okay? So I have y plus 6. I call these, when I teach equations, I call these leftovers. We bring all the leftovers straight down. Anything I don't mess with, I bring it straight down. The y, the plus, the 6, the equals. I didn't do anything to them, so they come straight down to the next row. Negative 3/2 times x is negative 3/2 x. Negative 3/2 times negative 2. So I'm just going to go up here and, I'm just going to copy this. Sorry about that, I messed up. Negative 3/2 times negative 2 is positive 3, plus 3. Now, I'm really close to being done. All I got to do is get rid of this. So I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. Y equals negative 3/2 x, and 3 minus 6 is negative 3, minus 3. And I got the same thing both times. All right? I'm going to do one of the ones from your homework. I mean, I guess if you actually chose to watch this video, well, go you. All right. Let's look at number 7 looks a little crazy. Okay. So it says for number 7, it says we have a slope of 3/5, and it goes through the point negative 15, negative 7. Okay, so they have made this so simple for us because literally they gave us a point in the slope. It's perfect for point slope form. Okay, so I'm going to call this x1, this y1. Okay, my equation, my form again is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So I'm going to do y minus, that's a negative 7, sorry about that, negative 7 equals 3/5 times x minus negative 15. Now you're going to want to start distributing right away, but don't, because again, first thing we're going to do is we're going to write it in point slope form to practice that. First we address all of our double negatives. So y minus negative 7, I got 2 negatives, that makes a positive. X minus negative 15 makes x plus 15. This right here is point slope form. Okay? So if they ask you to write, this is all you do to write it in point slope form. You find the slope in a point, you just write it. Now, if I want to convert that maybe to find the y-intercept, or because they're telling me to put it in slope-intercept form, then I'm going to take it a step further. I'm going to do y plus 7 equals 3/5 x plus 15. First step is to distribute this, which means I'm multiplying 3/5 times both of those. My leftovers come down. 3/5 times x is 3/5 x. 3/5 times 15. 3/5 times 15 is 9. Positive 9. And now all I got to do is get rid of this. So I subtract 7 from both sides. Y equals 3/5 x plus 2. Now, I can check this in my calculator. Okay? I know what the slope matches because they both say 3/5. But what I could do is I can put this, I can go to y equals and I can put alpha y equals 3/5 x plus 2 in my calculator. Okay? And I can look and see if negative 7 is actually a row in this table. And I'm scrolling. Negative 7 is a row in this. So when I put this equation in my calculator and I look at the table of values, it says negative 7 is in that equation and the slope is 3/5. So I know that this is right. I could also, if I wanted to, I could check it by substituting. I could say, okay, well, if y equals 3/5 x plus 2, and I know that x is negative 15 and y is negative 7, then negative 7 should equal 3/5 of negative 15 plus 2. Okay, well, 3/5 of negative 15 is negative 9. Negative 9 plus 2 is negative 7. That is a true statement, so I know that my equation is correct. Okay, we will do more of this in class tomorrow, so if you needed the extra help, there it is. If you didn't watch this, you don't even hear me saying this. But if you did watch it, I hope it was helpful.